If you ever had any doubts about Mikel Arteta as a coach, realize this. He went away with the team for 2 weeks and coached them to score lots of goals and concede none. This is the ArsenalVision Post-Match Podcast. My name's Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter at Yankee Gunner. Yeah, I don't know what else you want. I don't know what other coaches are saying, but Mikel Arteta, he gets the team away, warm weather training, and he says, listen, guys, these are the standards. You score the 5 goals, you concede the none. That's it. And we did that. A 5-star 5-0 victory over Crystal Palace, a Crystal Palace team that I would say fought tooth and nail for the manager. I would say we may not see a more motivated, fired up team at the Emirates this season. And to dismiss, I'm kidding. Wasn't great. There were banners and there was the frustration and they maybe laid down and died a bit. But those teams that lay down and die have a way of beating you if you let them. And sometimes I think seasons are about timing. You know, it's like, you played the team at the exact wrong time or the exact right time, and everything in your season changes. We went to Everton last season at the exact wrong time, didn't we? Right? Just the exact wrong time. This was the right team for the right time. And it was just what the doctor ordered. Let's face it. We're going to pick the bones out of this because that's what we do here. We analyze the game. But a 5-0 victory, no drama, players who maybe had been on a bit of a cold streak getting goals, you know, a clean sheet, contributions in the goals from a goalkeeper who's been under the microscope. Like it was all the things we needed it to be. Maybe there were a few things we could have asked for. I mean, is 10-0 too much to ask for? I guess so. But other than that, I think it was all the things we needed. So we're going to break all of that down, talk about, I think, what is a sort of muted, if not more than muted reaction to it, which is a bit strange. Look ahead a little bit. Obviously, Liverpool, I was hoping they'd drop points at Bournemouth with no Salah and no Trent Alexander-Arnold. Now Salah's back, and he's definitely going to play at the Emirates no matter what they're briefing. So we're just going to have to go chase them down anyway. And that's fine. That's the job, and that's what we're going to do. So let's kick this off. We'll let you know the Role Play Director of Football Pod was a very popular one we did over on Patreon where we sold some players and bought some players and we had numbers we had to hit. That series is going to continue. Phil Costa will be participating in that one. We may get broader participation if people continue to be interested and animated by that topic. It is a fun one. So hopefully you'll join us over there for that and for some live show announcements as well. So anyway, here with me now is Paul. You can find him on Twitter at Pause My Pants. Hello, Pause.
Woohoo! I got to give you props, Elliot.
Yeah.
Hang on.
Yeah.
No, before you go on. You need to get your props. That was an incredible impersonation of Mikel Arteta. You really nailed it. I thought it was culturally sensitive too.
Yeah. You know what I had to do? I had to tone it down from being so accurate because this is an audio medium. And for people who aren't watching it on YouTube, they may have thought he was on the pod. And then we get a letter from Mikel saying,
confusion.
Hey, you can't confuse people into thinking I'm on the pod by doing such a compelling imitation of my voice, almost as good as my Arsene Wenger was. And here with me now is Clive. You can find him on Twitter at ClivePFC. Hello, Clive.
Hello.
The Tim Exodus is over. He will be back this week. His voice is 99.9% back, so he will be back. You'll be hearing him on the main pod and on the Patreon pods this week, and we're just thrilled to have him back because we have missed him. But, you know, the absence makes the heart grow fonder, they tell me. And so I imagine he will be better than ever when he is back on the pod. So we look forward to that. Clive, I want to start with you because I think this is an interesting game to analyze in that, like, there's been a weirdly muted reaction to winning 5-0, and you were at the ground and you know, we all watched the same game, but I'm curious what you thought of the sort of energy around the game and of the reactions you've encountered, because we really needed this and we got everything we needed. But I think there's just a general anxiety in the fan base right now. If this result had put us top of the table, I think the reaction would be, we're the best, we're going to win the title. But because we're still 5 points back, there seems to be a fear that exists. So I'm curious what the reaction was like that you experienced in the ground. And if you agree with me that there's been an oddly sort of contemplative or even critical analysis of a 5-0 victory.
Yeah, I mean, I'm maybe not the best person for this because I'm quite a nervous Nelly before kickoff, right? And I think we're going to lose it.
That's my role.
But it was, hey, look, morning kickoff's not the best, right? Because whatever people say, right, for many people, having a drink before the game is part of the ritual. When you're on the train with a can of Stella at 10 o'clock in the morning, it doesn't feel right and appropriate, and so you tend not to. So it's coffee for me before the game, right? So
I have to stop you for a minute. I went to Leicester away last season, and Tim was kind enough to integrate me into his traveling group. And we were on that train, I want to say like 9 a.m. up to Leicester. And no, that did not tend to stop them. There were Jaeger bombs being drunk on that train at 9 a.m.
Well,
and they went down about as smooth as you expect. Yeah.
Yeah. The away day experience is a separate entity in itself, right? And when you're going away, all those rules disappear, right? But
it's like the airport. There are no rules around drinking.
Yeah, exactly. But for home games, it's slightly a little bit more. It's a little bit more structured, shall we say? So yeah, I was a bit nervous for the game. I'm in the north end of the ground, and the atmosphere inside. Well, I will say some of the people doing all the flags and the scarves and the sort of, it was really quite good, and it looked good. But it's 12:20 in the morning and it's freezing, right? So it was a little bit muted. Look, at the moment, it feels as though, as Arsenal people, we are really squinting at stuff, shall we say? And there are some people listening to this. We won 5-0. What's people moaning about? It feels as though at the moment 5-0 isn't enough. We have to win 5-0 in a swashbuckling fashion and remind us of yesteryear, right? And I know, Elliot, I know you guys are bored of me saying this, and I was worried about this actually, and I kept saying to people, try to erase last year from your minds, because if we're going to have what I call the first date season in our minds all the time, we're never going to be able to look at what is in front of us and look what could happen, and we can't spot the evolution of the team. Every night is not a Saturday night. You've got to go through the other stuff, and I'm afraid I'm talking to myself here, because unless we win like we did at Villa away, or Man United at home, or Spurs at home, or Liverpool at home, and all those high points, which were high, Bournemouth, there were loads of them. Why were they high? Because it was new, a new sense of belief, a new level. Now we expect it. I'm afraid we expect it. And 5-0, mate, how did you feel? I felt okay. So I'm part of it, right? I felt okay. Should I be jumping up and down? I don't know. You tell me.
Well, it's a good question. And I think the reason you just feel okay is because there are probably some things about it. I think everybody had their anxiety checklist, right? And they wanted to be able to check every box off of it. A scintillating performance from Gabriel Jesus, where he proves he's the hitman striker we need, and an effervescent Bukayo Saka performance where he returns to the levels we associate with him, and Martin Odegaard defense splitting pass to create goals. And, we don't just want to win. We want to check off all the things on our anxiety checklist. But, the irony is, and I said this on the instant reaction, but I really believe this. If you can't see how good we were in the loss to Liverpool in the FA Cup, in the loss to West Ham in the league, then I don't think it's really fair to question how good we were in a 5-0 win. Because you can't, when we lose, say the performance doesn't matter, it's all about the result. But when we win 5-0, turn around and say, but the performance didn't give me what I want, right? You know what I mean? We've performed so well in so many games this season and not gotten the result that I think the performance deserved. And this is a case where the result maybe flattered the performance slightly, but that's football and it balances out. And one of the things, Paul, obviously, that people are picking the bones out of a little bit is the open play thing. I mean, I heard the Arscast briefly, and I know James said that there were people at the ground when we scored the third goal were like, open play, like literally fans cheering open play at the Emirates. But set piece goals are important. Mikel spoke after the game about the importance of maximizing every phase of the game. They're excellent set pieces. Credit to Trossard, who does a nice blocker job. I think that's really interesting that Declan Rice took the first one. Bukayo Saka obviously took the other one. Two great runs and headers from Big Gabby, although I think the second one was taken from him, given his own goal. I don't know if that's official. Seems totally ridiculous, by the way, because the header's on target and it's going to go in, if not for the keeper finishing the job. But what do you think about our dominance at set pieces? We are the best team on set pieces from an attacking standpoint. We are the best team from a defensive standpoint too, but the caveat to that is we've given away by far the fewest corners. So that's really the reason why. But from an attacking standpoint, we're excellent at it. And what do you think about being a team that relies so much on set pieces for goals and chance creation, and why people seem to want to hand wave that. What do you think the reason behind that is?
Well, expectations, basically. Arteta said something about we need to be the best. If we want to be the best team in the world, we kind of need to be the best at everything. Now, I think what he really means is really, really, really good at everything. You don't need to be actually the best in every column, but you need to show up in each column. And like if you break it in, I was trying to divide it up in my head. If you break it into set piece goals, counter-attacking goals, we had a great day. And I think people are still anxious that it's that craft, that unpicking the lock, the triangles in the corners that we haven't really cracked this season, and the kind of the bit of magic in the box where from a good position you turn it into a great position and you slot it in. And I get that piece. That's still a column that we're looking to crack here. The thing I might take issue is sometimes we then let that bleed into our view of the performance in the game beyond like that final moment, that final thing. I think there were some really interesting things, some really good play. Now, part of it might have been Palace playing with 5-3 at the back, which meant there was a little more space between the centre backs when the full backs just pushed up a little bit. They didn't have to be up the pitch, just a little bit wide. I think they did 3 at the back, maybe in part as a defensive move, but also that thing Anderson does where he's pinging the ball all over the pitch didn't happen. But what did happen was there was just enough of a gap for us to hit those slots, those channels inside for Saka, switches to Saka to get him isolated. I think we aggressively played out from the back, which I kind of think everybody just assumes that's what we do all the time, but we absolutely don't. There are games when we do, probably home games against mid and lower level teams, but it looked like this might have been something that came straight out of our training camp. Real aggressive from the back. We were pinging it from both sides on switches more aggressively, and that Ben White up the channel from deep inside to Saka so that he's not stuck on the touchline. I really thought our overall play, now there was sloppiness in there too, because they're just back from the sunbeds.
Yeah.
Which maybe
Ben White never left the sunbed. Let's just be
never
clear.
left. Yep. The guy was glowing when he got on the pitch. So it's like you could break it into 4 parts. I'll go with the 3 kinds of attacking, which I've just made up, and our kind of overall play. I just think we went faster earlier. We hit the attack more vertically than maybe we have for a little while. It was less constructed, but the constructed play, like I get it. You can't win all games like this, and sometimes we're going to have to unpick the lock. And that wasn't really what we saw in this game. So I get those concerns, but I have a narrative for the season that we're starting slowly catchy monkey, and we're building up to something. And boy, the guys are really locking into my narrative. We've got more to come.
Yeah, I mean, if they go on to then improve as the season goes on, that's a key part of your narrative. Clive, I do think Paul's onto something here, though, that I'd like to explore a little more in terms of how we were playing. And now, look, there may be some of this just trying to squint to see changes coming out of the training camp because we had 2 weeks and you're trying to see what we tweaked. But I do think there was some verticality in our game that came from maybe not always pressing as high up the pitch and allowing Palace to progress it a bit more than we do for some teams. And then when we win it back in midfield or closer to our defensive third, really trying to be quick to create vertical transitions when the ball turns over. We obviously are a team that have created a lot of high turnovers this season, but this game, it didn't have that typical they're pinned in their defensive third vibe. They were able to progress it a bit. And then we did seem to really be focusing on very quick vertical passes to turn them the other direction. And obviously that's how our third goal comes from. But even before that, I thought that there was quite a bit of that. White and Zinchenko, both critical in that. Did you see anything different there? I mean, did it feel to you a little more back and forth, a little less pinning the opposition in the defensive third? And did that look like a plan in any way that you could make out?
Yeah, I haven't done the full rewatch yet. I like to sort of do the first pod without analyzing too much and give you the game feeling. And so my feeling from the game was we were more left-sided centric than we have been in previous games, particularly at the start. And I was laughing, sort of saying, oh, Paul Martinelli's on the bench. I didn't know why he was on the bench. I've since heard that he may be not quite 100% fit. But I'm thinking, looking at that selection, thinking, this is interesting. We use left side a lot more. Zinchenko obviously had his legs up, so he was very active on that side of the pitch and did a really good job on the day. And I just felt that was one thing. I will say, if I had an overall theme, I think we embraced our imperfections. By that, I mean, sometimes I think we try hard to be so perfect on the ball, but every now and again, just clip it in behind them. Just clip it in behind them. And we did that. And I thought, I've been watching Liverpool. I think they don't do anything but boot it forward sometimes. Don't win the first ball, challenge for it, get a second ball, 2 passes later, cross into a 6-yard box. Sometimes just play it forward and then worry about the perfection of it later on. You've got to put people under pressure. If they know you're going to pass it around, they can get into shape. And that's what's happened. So when the opportunity was to go forward, I thought we took it. I thought as I said earlier, I thought we did share the sides a little bit more. I think we've been very Saka-centric in the recent games I've seen. He's getting a lot of work. And I do think we focus a little bit more on connectivity once we get it, how we move it, receiving the ball really well. I thought Havertz and Trossard did well on that, receiving the ball, controlling it, and Jesus, and then getting the phases from there. But Palace were not the best, Elliot. They did what the European teams did. They pressed on to us, right? And that's why the pitch suddenly looked bigger again. The conversations we've had recently, I mean, the pitch looked bigger. When the pitch looks big, mate, we score 4 goals, 5 goals every time. And our ability to run through is really, really good. And we obviously forced the game into a game state which we like. And the pitch was big. And it's like, that's the thing. It wasn't quite as vivacious as last season, but we had lots of big pitch games last season. And with our wing forwards, we can rip anyone apart. They like to run. They like to get combinations and run free. And so we were able to run free, able to flip some through balls in, and it looked really nice. But I will say Crystal Palace maybe attributed to the lack of maybe atmosphere and nervousness in the ground, because they didn't, although once they pressed high and were popped around, their midfield competitiveness wasn't really there. And after the first goal, maybe second goal, the result was sort of done. So there wasn't that edge which lifts the crowd. You know what I mean? When every mistake, every bad pass means something, and you need to support your team because they're under the gun. I never felt that. Even though the shots were from the car park, mate, they were miles out. And so I never felt that tension. So yeah, an interesting day. But I thought, without squinting too hard, Paul's point about verticality, I saw it and sensed it, and I liked it. Sometimes just make people defend and don't try to be perfect.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting what gets described as a professional performance and then what gets described as a questionable performance. And, we're bringing a lot of priors into this game with 3 straight losses. And I think as a result, 5-0 just feels like it just about got people feeling better. And I do go back to the point that I think the biggest thing people had on their anxiety checklist was a swashbuckling Arsenal that cuts through a team and creates tons of chances for the guys we think need to be scoring goals, namely Saka, Jesus, those kind of guys. And if that doesn't happen, whatever else happened wasn't going to fully create that satisfaction, wasn't going to sate the appetite of people that are concerned about those things. But overall, there's a lot of really good stuff in here. I think we want to see. It is interesting, Paul, right? Because I think a criticism that has popped up about Mikel is we're too slow. We're too slow. When we create chances, it's not through direct enough play. It's not through quick enough play. It's, it's always from sort of ponderous possession. And I think we made a clear concerted effort to add some tempo into the way we attacked when we won the ball back. That also led to sloppiness. But the reason I think for sloppiness is that is a harder, less efficient way to play. When you're trying to be more direct and quicker, less of that's going to come off than little 3-yard ticky-taka, tippy-tappy passes on the edge of the area. So, I think you take the rough with the smooth a bit. This looked like adding a string to our bow, and I'm really excited to see it because I think it showed that we can drop into more of a mid-block, take the ball off a team that way, and go vertical, which was really good. Now, we probably did that better later in the game, ironically, when Jorginho was on, obviously when Martinelli was on. But do you think that we did add a string to our bow, that even despite some sloppiness, and I will concede that I don't think we created all that much in the first half, I definitely see the bones of a different way of playing here that could be a valuable plan B for a team that's sometimes accused of not having a plan B.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a one-off, but I definitely, it wasn't when I watched it again. It was the first time round in the first half. I'm like, oh, this is popping a little bit. This seems to be different. We seem to be trying to hit Saka early and quick when he's still 1v1 and there isn't the second guy coming in right behind the full back. So we seemed to hit him off the switch from the left-hand side, the vertical pass from Ben White inside to get him off the touchline, and just generally hitting players up the pitch quick and fast. And, maybe it was a reaction to what was in front of them with Palace. But I think as well, there was very early on, we played the ball back through Raya, 6-yard box kind of stuff. Saliba on the byline, stretching the pitch right out. And it seemed like we were kind of going to use the full pitch and then hit Saka early before they got two guys behind him, before they crowded the box. And you need those different ways of playing. Like, it would have been a shame had we slowly built up the pitch, moved the cannons into place, and then tried to triangle from both sides when this was available on the day. And it's not that I want us to change how we play. That's a very good way to play a season, to kind of push more times than not, it's going to pay off that you have a steady, controlled dominance of the attacking third and you unpick them. We've just been a little shy on the unpicking part. But you want both ways being able to play. Some games you're just going to have to break open with a set piece. I do think this was a different look to how we play, or maybe an opponent who hadn't given us this look for a little while and we took full advantage of it. But it seemed like we were there to hit them quick and early, and we didn't want to have a kind of an overly measured approach, kind of back to what had felt a few games before the break. I wouldn't be surprised if there was very much a clear plan. It was so early that I saw the switches, the pulling it deep, the Ben White ball straight up the channel inside to Saka. I'm like, this feels different. This feels like we have a plan. And of course, plans can change when they don't work. But the switches as well. I mean, we switch from time to time, but seemed concerted effort to swing it from left to right, get Saka early before they were set. Yeah, I thought there was something going on here.
Clive?
Yeah. I think I'm sort of conscious that we're all trying to look at this. We all want the team to follow Paul's narrative, right? Okay, the first half of the season,
yes,
it's been okay. I'm not letting Paul add that narrative, right? Because I've got a bit of that as well, right? So and so basically, the first half of the season is like okay, and then the second half we're just gonna kick on, right? And so when you're seeing data like Man City being slower going forward than us, I'm actually quite encouraged by that, because this is a marathon, it's not a sprint, right? I know we're not used to this, but I remember last year I was getting excited and Man City fans reached out to me saying, yeah, we'll see what happens in the later part of the season when your legs run out. At the time I thought, no chance, mate, we're going to be fine. But he was right. And he said, we always do this. We start slow and we build up later on. So I'm holding on to this for later. But sometimes the game's just easy, right? Palace have got a decent centre-back in Mark Gay, and they whipped him over to the left-hand side to double up on you-know-who, our most dangerous forward on the right-hand side. So what do? We spend all the time going down the left-hand side. I really punish a guy calls it Chris Richards on that side. It doesn't always play, and we just punish that side. Sometimes it's just like, it's that easy. And then once you shift everyone over to the left, you switch the ball to the right, which is what you should do. Switch the point of the attack, get isolations, fast support. Ben White overlap, you know the rest. And it's just a model for the day. It's just a model for the day. And I think we have to get used to just accepting we've got a bunch of players that can do different things different days. And if anything, if there's a learning to come out of this, we should be more comfortable seeing a Trossard play on the left and someone else come off the bench. We should be more comfortable seeing a Havertz play centre forward and Jesus on the left. If we got these 4 or 5 players that we sort of are okay with, if we add some variation by just moving them around, maybe starting 1 or 2 different positions, and people have now got to plan for us a different way. So that's the theme I sort of walked away with earlier. I think I'm just conscious of over-analysing something when the other team barely lay the glove on us. That's just my gut feel, though. That's all.
No, there's a couple of dangers, right? There's the danger that you're reading too much into circumstance than you should. There's the danger that you are very focused on analyzing your team and you're not used to analyzing the opposition, so you don't see the way the opposition's performance changed what you did more than you changed what you did. There's a lot of that. I mean, the thing about Palace is they carried no threat. I think we had close to 3 expected goals. I think they had like 0.3, but they really didn't carry much threat. Eze's a good player, but didn't have much joy in this game. He was given a free kick from a dangerous area that if I recall, I don't think he did much with. Paul, I think it's interesting and good that Martinelli came off the bench and scored 2. I'm not ready to get to that yet, but as we sort of shift to the individual analysis portion of the pod, I am curious to your take on Trossard's performance, because the reason I'm really glad Martinelli got a brace off the bench is I think we would have been in for a week of, well, you see what Trossard did is exactly the problem with Martinelli. And the one moment he was decisive and he finished, and that's really what we need on the left. And then of course Martinelli comes in and he's Thierry Henry times 2, right? So I'm glad that narrative got nipped in the bud by Martinelli's performance when he came on. But Trossard did take his chance. Well, I mean, it's ironic. In the 51st minute, he misses our best chance of the game quite badly. So, it really depends, which side of the coin you want to look at. But to Clive's point of saying, poor Martinelli, we played up the left. I just think what Mikel realizes is that Trossard is not Martinelli, and he doesn't try to use him that way. I think Trossard was more on the interior. We let Kai overlap him to the outside. We let Zinchenko even overlap a bit. Zinchenko, by the way, we're probably not going to talk about him much. I thought he was outstanding. Really, really good. And it's funny because in the Discord, we were having a debate about, does Arsenal have any players who are the best in their position in the league? And the 2 that got a quick mention are maybe Declan Rice and maybe William Saliba. But a third mention was Zinchenko. Is there a better left back? Now, at first I sort of poo-pooed it, but I'm like, first of all, it's not exactly a golden generation of left backs. There's Ake. I don't know. There's Robertson. Then there's Zinchenko and everything he does for us. And on this day, it was really on display. So I do want to give him just a little pat on the back for what I thought is another great performance that will fly under the radar if we allow it. And so I want to call it out. But on the Trossard thing, do you see us using him differently than we do when Martinelli plays? And do you think he was good? I mean, what's your take on this? Because Mikel did say Martinelli wasn't fully fit to start. So I don't know if this was purely a selection decision. It may have been a fitness decision. But what do you think he did with his opportunity?
So he was my stock rising. Now, Gabriel had been snaffled up on the instant reaction.
Big Gabby went first, just before people think we're crazy.
yeah. But it wasn't. I actually said the Trossard thing, and before his goal, I was already like, that side is coherent. It's moving. It's not all reliant on the right hand side, and it's not Martinelli with 2 fullbacks pinning him in. There's something to, and like I just happened to randomly stop my first half video at 19 minutes and 20 seconds. And you mentioned Havertz swinging out to the left. Well, right now it's Gabriel Jesus with chalk on his boots. It's Zinchenko just tucked inside and putting the ball in behind to Havertz, who's running into the box to meet it. Trossard is actually kind of left 8 central, almost in a Emile Smith Rowe arriving late in the box moment. And like the one thing Trossard is going to give you is he likes to vacate wherever he starts and move and rotate. And when you put that in with Jesus and Havertz, there should be more than maybe we've perceived comes from a Trossard off the left wing, and it is all about that movement. Arteta also talked about intelligence, and those are all intelligent players who seek space. And Zinchenko has spotted the path into Havertz in behind. So you got these, like, Havertz loves space. In the second half, he keeps floating out to the right-hand side of the pitch, opening up the center, or especially when you have like Jesus, Havertz, and Trossard, you're going to have players who are making moves, making runs, who are going to vacate to create an opportunity. Now, it hasn't happened that much in the first half of the season, and I wonder if in part it's because of who Trossard came on with. Did he have Jesus? Did he have Havertz? And we're kind of beginning to find maybe a rhythm for all of those players. So, like the prologue is not prelogue.
Past is not prologue?
Yeah, that's the one. I had an epilogue, I had a prelogue, a prologue. I knew it wasn't one of those, possibly any of those, but like, it's all different now. The second half will be different, we hope. And so, like, it is a combination of who's on the pitch. I liked generally what happened. For more of our attacks came down the left-hand side, which just being equal to the right-hand side is something for us. It was just much more coherent. There was a lot of good play, a lot of good movement. It wasn't relying on one guy off the wing to beat a guy, to get to the byline and cut it back. There was play, there was movement, there was space. Now, might have been this 3 at the back, 5 at the back thing that Palace did. But this was like early on, before the game was up, before the second goal, they still thought they had a chance. They were still trying properly. I don't think they really died off till Trossard killed them with the third goal, certainly not before the second goal. And it just looked coherent. So that was my stock rising. The Trossard thing, because especially as a stock rising, it doesn't mean he was the best player on the pitch or that was the best area on the pitch. But in terms of where it was to where it came, this was the best Trossard-ish area of the pitch performance we've seen this season. So I want to see it again. And it gives you the advantage that Martinelli comes off the bench at whatever it was, 70 minutes, and tears them a new one, which is the kind of thing Martinelli should do.
I think that this was a fine Trossard performance and not a great one. I think it was fine. But for a team that has struggled with open play goals, he scores one to make the game really safe. As we know, 2-0 is a scoreline we can find a way not to win from. And if we're going to say that what we need are players who perform in the highest leverage moments, I think Trossard has a pretty good track record of doing that. But I think there's another really important point. A squad needs a 13th man, a 12th man, a 14th. A squad needs a really reliable player who's not just coming off the bench, but can start and you don't feel the level drops. And I think in attack in particular, that's where we have really lacked before we signed Trossard. We all trust Martinelli, Jesus, and Saka, maybe some more than others, but I think we trust them. I don't know that we've had another player. People are mixed on Eddie and on Nelson and on, anyone else we've tried in those positions, Vieira. I think in Trossard, we have a guy that when Trossard's name is on the team sheet to start a game, no one rolls their eyes and says, we're not scoring today, right? Like, this is the caliber of player who maybe doesn't win you a title by playing 38 games, but helps win you a title by keeping the level high when he plays. Clive, it sounds like you wanted to weigh in on that.
Yeah, I just want to beat Paul before he gets in, because but you sort of went back yourself a little bit there. I watched Liverpool yesterday, and mate, they got a guy in Jota who I'm not sure if he plays in their best team, but when he plays, he does something, and we've got one. I'm not sure if he's better on left, right, and the centre. Same for Jota, but when he came on in the centre against us in the cup game, I thought he transformed it. Jota did. And yesterday he transformed the game as well. And we have someone in Trossard who just floats and connects with other players. And that's all I want at the moment. I want connectivity in the front end of the pitch, because the goals will come if you have good, intelligent movement. And there was a lot of Smith Rowe love over the winter break. And I'm thinking, mate, what about Trossard? What about him? He has done it in recent times. Why is everyone just forgetting him? And yes, he has moments where he disappears when he starts a game. I sometimes think, oh mate, come on, you're starting the game. Where have you gone? But then he has a day like that. On this day, I thought he was fine, and he came off, and someone else came on and powered us up from the bench, which we got to embrace. We got to embrace this. We have a group. Let's use them. And I include Smith Rowe in that as well. Let's use them, maybe only for 25 minutes, but yes, you use them to provide extra power and zip in the second phase of the game.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Liverpool. Obviously, they want Mohamed Salah starting every game, just like we want Bukayo Saka starting every game. But I think between Nunez and Gakpo and Jota and Diaz, it's all, of a piece for them. They feel confident in those players playing. Obviously, City want Haaland starting, but, they have just a bevy of attacking talent that they can bring on, and they feel pretty confident whichever one's starting. I mean, I think they'd prefer Doku, but, they've got Foden, they've got Grealish. They have options. I don't know if Trossard is nailed on starter, but I certainly think nailed on starter is not necessarily the terminology of a title winning team. You need to have players who, when they start, the level stays consistent. So I'm comfortable with that. And I think, we were approaching that in other areas of the pitch, by the way, before injury. I think Timber was going to give us some of that versatility in the back line. I certainly think Thomas Partey, whether you wanted him sold or not, had he stayed fit, Partey, Rice, and Jorginho, that's a hell of a group in midfield that can all play for one another and maintain the level. And so I think we were getting there. I think partially through injury and a few other factors, we haven't been able to exploit that as much, but Trossard has done it, and I think kudos to him. I want to get to a couple other individual performances, and I really want to spend time on the subs as well. So, Paul, a final thought on this before we shift gears a little bit?
Yeah, I want to make a point that I think is going to go very badly. People won't get it or hear it, and it's probably fundamentally wrong.
Is that meant to be different?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is.
Because you're preparing this for it like it's different. I just wanted to get a sense. Okay, go for it. Let's see what you got.
So you said that you don't think Trossard had a decent game, but nothing outstanding. See, I basically agree with that, but I think we should sometimes you look at it and you say, the Trossard thing worked, right? Like the Martinelli thing worked. Like, did the guy have a good game? Don't care really. Did the vibe work? Did the movement? Did the patterns? So that's really what I mean. I think the Trossard thing didn't work in previous games this season, maybe because of the personnel. The Trossard thing worked this time. And certain players have a certain vibe in their area. And I think that's what I'm really talking about. And I think it's an important principle. It doesn't matter if the guy has a good game. If the kinds of things he does sets off the kinds of movements and the patterns, and I think the Trossard thing worked this game, and he had a great goal.
Okay. Yeah. Well said. So look, I think it's worth shifting gears to some of the other player performances that are interesting in this one. And maybe a couple that are not getting the love that they deserve. So I do want to talk about that. The substitution's obviously really important as well, but I think that there could not have been a better scoreline, whatever you think of the performance coming out of this break, not having scored goals, being on a losing streak, not just winning, but winning with 5 goals. And it just feels like a fresh start, a fresh start to the second half of the season, even though it's mathematically not quite the second half, a little past halfway. And a fresh start is about getting rid of all the old overgrown feeling of negativity and all the old sort of weeds that have sprouted up. I think in a lot of ways you could think of the 2-week break like the Manscaped Performance Package 5.0. Because the Manscaped Performance Package 5.0 allows you to get clean and fresh and new, just like Arsenal did over their 2-week break. And with Valentine's Day on the horizon, you can be the Valentine by being clean and fresh and new for your partner. Join more than 10 million worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer. And the offer is 20% off and free shipping with the code ArsenalVision at manscaped.com. The Performance Package 5.0, what is it? Well, it includes the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. The Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra has the brightest LED light, the longest lasting battery, the skin-safe technology, right, with ceramic blades. It's waterproof, so it's shower safe. Everybody shaves. Everybody poops. That's a book. Everybody shaves. that is a reminder that you should use the right tools. And the Performance Package 5.0 not only gives you that, but it gives you the Weed Whacker 2.0 nose and hair trimmer, their liquid formulations, 2 free goodies, the Shed Travel Bag and the Boxers 2.0. Love the Boxers, use them for working out because comfort is king. So they also have, by the way, a cologne now. They have the Beard Hedger. Really great products, high-end trimmers. Get the Performance Package 5.0. Go get 20% off and free shipping with Manscaped at manscaped.com with code ArsenalVision. That's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. Use code ArsenalVision because, as the copy says here, your grooming upgrade awaits, ready to charm your Valentine dates. Dates, multiple. Really? Okay. Well, no judgment. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp isn't online therapy. It's therapy. It just happens to be online. And you are going to be able to save 10% off your first month when you go to betterhelp.com/vision. Again, it's BetterHelp, not Better Health, BetterHelp, which will improve your health because mental health is health. I think it's so important to pay attention to where you're at emotionally and in terms of your mental health. And I think sometimes we think of therapy as a crisis management tool, when what it should be seen as is maintenance, regular everyday maintenance, the same way nutrition is, the same way visiting your doctor is, the same way exercise is. If you stay on top of your mental health, then ideally we're able to avoid those low lows that can lead to crisis. And also just remove the roadblocks that get in your way. You might be a person who feels, I'm mentally healthy, I'm happy, I'm successful, but there may be roadblocks and you don't know they're there. And I think, honestly, therapy is the best thing I ever did. I just cannot recommend it highly enough. So celebrate the progress you've already made this year, and let's keep making it. Visit betterhelp.com/vision today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/vision. Last but not least, I think the product we're most asked about, which is NordVPN. Basically, this one's easy, right? You can browse in other regions. It's that simple. You can browse in other regions. You want to watch Match of the Day, but you're not in the UK, you can browse over there. You want to watch Australian Netflix or your US football matches because, as you know, here in the US, we can watch all the football. But if I'm traveling over to England, which I'll be doing because I just booked my trip for my next series of games, so I can't wait for that. But when I'm over there and I want to watch Tottenham lose, that game might be blacked out in the UK, but it's not blacked out on my service in the US. I can NordVPN back. Plus, they have threat protection, so they can stop malware and adware and all that stuff hitting your computer before you even click on it. And let's be honest, some of you may be watching football on links that are, let's say, less than on the up and up, and those sometimes download things on your computer you don't want. So get NordVPN. Do it. It's NordVPN.com/ArsenalVision. It is their biggest bonus ever. 4 bonus months for free and a 30-day money-back guarantee. 4 bonus months. Okay? So they've never done that before. You might as well use our code and get those 4 bonus months. NordVPN.com/vision. Do it now, Clive. Is that enough of that?
Indeed.
Got it. Okay. This advertisement is sponsored by the ArsenalVision Podcast. So, Clive, the David Raya thing has been a big conversation. And I think he comes up anytime there's any negativity. I want to make sure that we praise some of the positivity and talk a little bit about some of the things he did well in this game. He did have one bad kick out. To be fair, William Saliba does a brilliant little, I think it's a Cruyff or, turn in the box, but he gives it to Raya under pressure, and Raya just doesn't lift it quite enough. And it leads to a little bit of stress, but not huge stress. And I think he does well to save the returning shot. But he had 2 great, quick, long throwouts. One that led to Saka getting in from Kai Havertz, but we didn't get a shot from that. And the other is the Trossard goal. I thought his positioning was good. His kicking was good. He didn't have a lot to do goalkeeping-wise, but he claimed crosses well. He did have to claim a few that I thought he claimed well, and his claim rate is very high. He parried a few that maybe he could have caught. But overall, I think his awareness and his quick release set us away on a couple of dangerous attacks. I thought it was a good Raya game, and I'm wondering, do you feel the anxiety around Raya abating maybe a bit? I wonder if people have just come to terms with the fact that this is the guy we're going with. He certainly looked, I thought, at ease and effective in this game.
Yeah, I thought he had a good game. I think I sometimes sense in the ground that everyone's being polite, because we can see he's a good goalkeeper. So they're being polite. There isn't no one, there isn't the love, shall we say. But I actually think he stopped being polite. I think he stopped worrying about what people are thinking about him and just started to show what he actually is, which is a decent goalkeeper, is quite proactive, that's got very good distribution. So stop worrying about everyone thinks about you. Just be the person that we've signed you, that we've signed. And I thought he was much more like that in this game. And he was interacting with the crowd. He was jumping and thumping when we scored. I thought, mate, good for you. You can't be worrying about what's going on in the interwebs. Just like play, And I think that was a theme for the game earlier. I thought, remember the Liverpool game when we were, sorry to make Liverpool so much, listener, but the Liverpool Cup game was really relevant, how we took so many touches and were really keen to get things right. In this game, we just did it. We just did it. If we went right, great. If it didn't go right, so what? Win the ball back. Do you know what I mean? And I think we have developed an off-the-ball team, so win the ball back. Don't worry about it. And I saw the Cruyff and the pass back. It was just a bit rushed. He couldn't get his feet in to get it up, and so he topped it and he went flat and then he made the save. And of course, we all remember it because we were all watching. Right? But yeah, apart from that, he had a really strong game. Very strong.
Yeah. I'm just going to say this as well. Gabby has 2 goals. They score nothing. They get no joy off him. Once again, he just somehow doesn't wind up being the main headline. I think Gabriel Magalhaes is one of the best signings we've ever made. And I couldn't be happier that he plays for us. I think the partnership he has with Saliba is exceptional. And I think we should also be reminded that we started this season unsure that he was staying. Paul, he gave the heart symbol to the fans. He looks really happy with his football and with his partnership with Saliba, and who wouldn't be happy with the partnership with Saliba? But one of those players that is never going to fully be in the spotlight, but you just can't build a team without one of these guys. The load-bearing wall that does so much important work without ever asking to be the center of attention. I adore him as a player.
Yeah. Like the weird thing is, and I think somehow everybody will relate to this, he's the most appreciated, underappreciated player in football history. It's like everybody says he goes under the radar, he's underappreciated, and we spend our time saying how underappreciated he is because he's feckin' great.
Yeah.
He's really, really good. And he surprises. He looks like the guy who's not going to be very good at distribution, who's going to be a bit labored, who's going to be a bit obvious. And every now and then you're like, sorry, who hit that sweeping, raking ball into the far right hand? And you wind it back and you're like, yep, that was Gabriel. Or the clever pass between players up the channel. And you're like, who? Oh, yeah, okay, him again. So it's almost by implication, by assumption, that he's the lesser option. And of course, it's William Saliba, is his buddy and partner. And like, sometimes I think it's inevitable it's done because we're so focused on individuals. And here we are talking about an individual. But like, you should just leave these guys alone as pairs, as sets. Saliba and Gabriel is an awesome pairing. And you can say, oh, he's the guy on the right is the guy with all the culture and the skill and this, but they're both really, really good. They're both kind of variations of each other with the dials turned up in some areas more than others. And okay, the problem with Saliba is he can do it all to the max level. But still, there's something Gabriel gives you in terms of an aggression and an intimidation. Saliba's a little bit more dialed back, a little bit more Van Dijk kind of, I will give you a moment where you think you have a chance and then I will extinguish all your hope. Whereas Gabriel's like this fire-breathing, flames coming out of his nostrils, and he crushes you at the first moment he can. So it's almost like they have a different vibe to them. And yes, Saliba has some sizzle and some sauce. You wouldn't want to see Gabriel do some of the things Saliba does, but then Arteta doesn't want to see Saliba doing some of the things Saliba does, but he always pulls it off and opens up an opportunity. I love Gabriel. The idea that he thought that his best option during the summer, based on some rumors, was to look elsewhere. Maybe the whole Saliba contract thing that kicked off all the plaudits, all the kind of had his nose a little out of joint about all of the contractual love, all the media love for Gabriel. But within the fan base, I mean, I would imagine if he walked anywhere around Islington, and he should, the amount of love that guy would get from any Arsenal player he runs into, he's super, super appreciated in an underappreciated but definitely appreciated way. So,
yeah, it's one of those things where it certainly doesn't seem to extend beyond the Arsenal fan base as well as I can tell. But I guess that's the cross you bear, being the center back who stands next to the generational center back. We're going to say goodbye to Paul, who's on Twitter at Pause My Hands. Thanks, Pause. We'll talk to you later this week.
Woohoo!
Yeah, I think there's a few other performances here, Clive, that I'm just curious to kind of clean up before we do the subs. Well, Declan Rice, so he's walking off, and all of a sudden I'm checking the Twitter timeline, and everyone's saying he mouthed the word hammy as he walked off. Now, Mikel was asked about this, and he said there was a tightness. We just didn't want to take any chances. I don't think we've had an update on this. Have you hit panic levels over this yet, or are you prepared to stay calm and peaceful?
Yeah, I've not hit the panic levels that you normally hit. I just checked just now as you were talking, and nothing, mate. Not seen anything. He just probably. I'm hoping he just felt a bit of tightness in his hamstring, and we got him off quickly enough, and the game allowed us to do that. And the same with Gabriel as well, allowed us to make a change based on the fact that we were in a strong position. So, I haven't heard anything, Elliot. Is it a worry? Yeah, absolutely. Well, when there's rumours of Thomas Partey coming back for Forest, and suddenly we lose the other bloke. That's not what we're all thinking, right? We're thinking Liverpool, February the 4th. What sort of shape are we going to be in? Liverpool are getting all their work done before that game, so to make sure they're strong. So, yeah, we've got to make sure we're strong.
But to your point, you've just mentioned Liverpool in the same breath as Forest. We've lost away to Forest. That's not a game we can just take for granted. And I dare invoke the trap game phrase here, in that we can't be thinking along the lines of, well, let's just rest Rice so he's healthy for Liverpool. The Liverpool game matters a lot less if we don't do our business at Forest. So, we have to be really, really mindful of that. Kai Havertz, Clive, any thoughts? I think Kai Havertz is evaluated in a way that I don't think any other player in that position would have been. Granit Xhaka certainly wasn't. We looked at Granit Xhaka as a midfielder, and we thought if he stitches things together and he wins his duels and he keeps things ticking over, anything he does in the final third is a bonus, but that's really his role. Kai Havertz was brought in, presumably, I think, to take the level up in the final third. At least that's what we analyze the move as being. And so people keep waiting for it to go boom, so to speak. And that without goals or assists, we evaluate his performances very differently. And I've seen a wide range of analysis of his performance, because I think some people felt he had some really good passes. There was some good verticality in his game. He was combative. He did things well. And other people saying, we're judging this guy by the lowest bar in human history, and he needs to be giving more of this. Still dividing opinion, as will most players, to be fair. But do you have a sense of how he's growing into the role? Because again, it's a game where I don't think he's the focus. But when he's not the focus, then people say, see, he's not doing enough. So it's a tough one.
I think his role, I think his role changes a lot in games, and that's the reason why he was bought. If we want him to be a dual-winning monster, he can do that. If you want him to play as a second centre forward in a particular phase of the game when Jesus drops, he can just go and do that. I thought his ability to receive the ball and have a good technical control of his circumference and then move it through was so much better than it was early in the season. He took down some very difficult balls and just kept it moving. And we look at the average position at half-time, and Zinchenko was ahead of him. Right? So people are judging him on goals and assists. Well, in this day, it was a bit more of an outside-the-box game, not an inside-the-box game. We had the goals that we needed, and then we sort of settled down. And there are some players, and I include Rice in this as well, when the games are easy, they just give you a 6, 7 out of 10. No drama. Just keep it moving, keep the ball going. When the game's hard, your better players need to step up, and Rice does that. And your more physical players, they have much more of a contest to fight. And there wasn't really a centre midfield contest, really. Once you broke their press, it's all about just keeping the ball flowing. There was a flow game into Trossard, into Jesus, and into Saka. So it wasn't really a game where you could judge anyone by in that regard. But hey, look, people are going to come in with their luggage with Havertz, and it is what it is, right? He's come from that club. He's on this wage. He costs this much. We replaced Granit Xhaka for him. He hasn't scored enough goals, hasn't got enough assists. Hey, you just can't win it. He's got to judge it on a game-by-game basis. And on this game, he did exactly what was required, got himself off the pitch, and someone else came on and gave us the last third of the game. Nothing to see here. Literally nothing to see. And we just got to make sure that the big games are the ones you really judge, right? So, and that's what I'm waiting for.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said sort of earlier in the podcast, that I think one of the reasons people aren't coming away from a 5-0 just over the moon is that if they had a checklist of things they want to see, not everything got checked off. And so they can still worry about that. 2 goals for Bukayo, a goal and assist for Jesus, a goal for Kai Havertz with a domineering performance. Like you want all of the things that you have concerns about to get addressed in every game. And that's just not how football works. I think, I think this was a great game because we won the game early. We controlled the game. We gave nothing away. I mean, you could look at the Liverpool game against Bournemouth that they won comprehensively. That was an even game. I know people don't love XG, but if you look at it, I think what it tells you is caliber of chances. Liverpool and Bournemouth basically played an even game, and Liverpool were clinical. Now, that's part of it. That's part of football. Being clinical is important. But my point is, I think, and Bournemouth away is a much, much more difficult fixture than Palace at home. I accept that. But this was a very professionally handled game that we won comprehensively, and it allowed us to bring on subs, not in the 87th minute, but early enough that they could really play a decent chunk of the game. And I think that there were important substitute performances from a number of players. Let's start though with the one.
Before we dig on to just that, Elliot, do you mind if I just hold you on this feeling? Please. I think I've been thinking about this for the last day. Really, what's got into our psyche around this? Because a 5-0 win should feel different. So what's got into our psyche? And for me, we've lost a bit of belief. We've lost belief in the team's final outcome versus what's happening at other places. We've seen De Bruyne spring back with a new hairstyle and just play for 5-10 minutes and change a game. We've seen Liverpool find their stride, right? And Spurs and Villa are still hanging around. And we've blown 3 games in a row and won 1 in 7 until this game. And we've lost belief. And one win is not going to bring that belief back. And even though it's 5-0, it's not going to bring it back. And that's actually quite a shame, really, that we've allowed this in. And by the way, the issues that we all see, we mostly agree with them. There are issues that are in the team that we know around goal scoring and centre forward presence, maybe, that we mostly agree with. So when you have people all agreeing with the same thing, you need more actions to really rebuild that belief structure in.
Wasn't there? They sent us a response recently. I think it was.
Yeah. Paul's audio still hot. No problem. Keep going, Clive.
And so basically, so our belief structure is going to take a little bit of time to come back, right? So, and I don't know if it's a shame or not, but I found not just losing the games, but I found the last couple of weeks quite tough from a footballing point of view, quite tough from a podcasting point of view, because the problems are clear, but the reaction is so broad, and we've lost a bit of enjoyment. And from an Arsenal supporter's perspective, I'd love that to come back, and I'm not sure when it's gonna, and I'm not sure what moment's gonna.
It's not going to. It's not going to, and I don't mean that negatively. I think Arsenal Football Club were down bad. First, there was COVID. No one at the ground. the world basically locked away feeling miserable. So COVID ends and that lifts a lot of, well, it doesn't end, you know what I mean? The COVID lockdowns end and things and lifts a lot of the mood, and fans back in the stands able to connect with their club. That helps. And then you get this season where an 8th place team became a 5th place team and suddenly we're a 100-point pace team. COVID lockdowns are over. There's a magical coming together of factors to just raise the level of enthusiasm and love to newfound heights. The youngest team in the league, led by a couple academy players, rising up to compete with City. It was the perfect confluence of events to create a unique spike in enthusiasm. But let's be honest, Arsenal Football Club has no business being an underdog. It's just not who we are. Sure, we can be an underdog to City to some extent, but we're one of the biggest clubs in the world, one of the biggest clubs in England. We will never appropriately be an underdog. And so I think what's happening is, in a good way, we're returning to status, which is Arsenal Football Club as a Champions League club that competes for titles. That's where we should be. And now the problem, though, is when you're where you're expected to be, the reaction is a little different. And I think this is a positive. And what I mean is, people are only going to be very happy if we go and do the big things. Just being in the frame for the big things is no longer going to be enough. No, Arsenal supporters are not going to long-term be satisfied with, hey, we competed for it. And I don't think entitlement is good. You should, by the way, try to extract joy from football. That's kind of what this whole thing's about. But I think the reality is that our stature as a club means that what happened last season in terms of the enthusiasm is unlikely to be repeated. It was a very, very unique thing. And let me tell you something. If we're within a point of the title in April and in May, you'll see a similar level of enthusiasm. If people think we can really go on and do it, you will. There's also been a hammer blow, I think, from being top at Christmas to 5 points adrift 2 games later, just sucked all the air out of the room. It was like someone opened the airlock. So a lot of things have happened. And I think a 5-0 win over a dead Palace where the first 2 goals come from corners, even though we all know intellectually, don't be a miserable git. We won 5-0, celebrate it. We just have bigger fish to fry. And so that's on everybody's mind. But that's okay. I think also to your point sometimes, Clive, there are players that we know hold our dreams in their boots. And those players are guys like Saka and Jesus, for example. And so I think we want those signs that those guys are ready to go on and do it now, right? And so while Gabriel Magalhaes rising highest to score 2 goals from set pieces wins us the game, what we think can win us the title is Saka curling him in from outside the box or Jesus dribbling 2 guys in the box to score. So we still want to see those things, but as I've always said on this pod, you must be able to extract the joy from a single game, because the season is going to give you who knows what, So you got to walk that fine line.
That's really well said, Elliot. We have a blueprint on what this team looks like. And also, a lot of times, I'm trying to smash through that blueprint, because if we become so dependent on certain people being on form and are playing all the time, we know that's not going to work. We know they're going to get tired. We know we're playing Champions League this year. So I want to smash the blueprint a little bit in our minds. So it's okay for him to play as well, because he can do a job, and then the other person is ready. Man City didn't find their balance till February last year. They didn't find it, right? But then they found it. They went on from there, and they didn't rotate towards the end of the season. That's what I hope we do. But we still need to find our balance. We still need to find our joy. And I don't talk for every Arsenal fan. I have to tell you what I sensed in the ground, and in myself. I was nervous as hell, right? And but after the game, I know it was an early kickoff, and where I sit and did my recording for you guys for the IR, mate, all the bars were really full, and people hung around, and it looked like a lot of relief, and there's a lot of smiling faces. Before the game, it was a little bit tense, shall we say? So we all go through this process. It's all individual to us. I yearn for the days when we're all back screaming our brains out because we had a fantastic win, and hopefully won't be too far away.
And it's not too far away, because let's be honest, we'll be doing that when Liverpool come to the Emirates, and we'll be doing it when Porto come to the Emirates, unless we've already killed the tie with a 10-0 victory in the first leg, which would be fine. So I think those are all interesting things to consider. Why we look at this way. And here's the other really funny thing I'll say about being a fan. We had this magic last season. And because we don't have that magic this season, I think people want to look at whose fault is it? Did Mikel kill the magic? Is it Kai Havertz instead of Shaq? But like, sometimes you have to accept last season's magic wasn't reproducible for the reasons I've laid out earlier. And so instead of looking for a culprit as to why the magic isn't there, maybe try to find ways to reinvigorate yourself to feel the magic again. And this is where, Clive, I think you are so wise on this point. You have to forget last season, because you will never be able to put yourself in the place emotionally you were last season for all of the reasons we've laid out. So this is all very meta fan stuff, but I think if you're able to say, I'm going to find the magic in this season, I'm going to find a way for Arsenal being in the knockouts of the Champions League and being in a title race with players I like and a team I'm excited about, I'm going to find a way to enjoy that without comparing it against the way last season made me feel. Rolling it back out of our buttholes a little bit for a second and back to the pitch. Let me just wipe my head off a little bit from having it so far up there. Okay, all better. The subs. Obviously, the one that we should talk about first. I don't think that it was the most impactful of them, but I think it's the one we should talk about first is Emil Smith-Rowe. This is the first chance he got to come on. And I said this in the instant reaction. I think it was important for Mikel's credibility that he came on early in this game, early enough, because Mikel has talked up very highly how he's playing, how he's training, how he's performing in practice, how his body is looking and physically how he's holding up, and that he's ready to really push on now. You can only say that so long without rewarding the player with real minutes. And he did. And I think it was the kind of performance that is, it's not the, oh my gosh, we've discovered something performance, but it's the kind that shows you he can absolutely come in and play for Arsenal. He did what he does. He added that verticality. He added that tempo. Off the ball stuff with him is always a little mixed in my view, his out of possession stuff. But I just think he looks more lively than we've seen him. And I this is a player, obviously, who, if we can rediscover him a little bit, and if he is ready to come in and play meaningful minutes, makes a big difference to what we have. He adds that group I mentioned with Trossard, the one where you need a player who, if he's on the starting team sheet, you're not rolling your eyes or moaning, right? And no one's going to moan at seeing Smith-Rowe on the starting 11. So what did you think of him getting those minutes and the importance of that?
Well, the crowd was very much behind him, Elliot. As he was warming up, he was getting cheered. And when Arteta called him back to the bench, another big cheer came up. And so everyone's behind him. And it maybe goes back to what we were saying, that he's part of that memory from recent years, isn't he? He's part of that lovely time when expectations were not heavy, and he saved us, right? Him and Saka, they brought us to a new place and almost changed this era. And he got his new contract, got his number 10, and here we are. But he has struggled for injury, and maybe that injury is now behind him. He did get a start against Sheffield United, and then he got injured again and missed another month, right? So I'm always conscious when we're around injuries not to, when I don't know the information, the data behind it, and what people are seeing and how he's doing and the numbers, etc., that people in the club would know and we just don't. But I look at it from a squad perspective. Trossard has come in and he has taken Smith-Rowe's role. He plays inside and out and false nine. And Smith-Rowe, I think, can do all those jobs. But Trossard's come in at 20 million quid, whatever it was. And he's de-risked Smith-Rowe, but he's also put him under squad pressure. Then on top of that, Havertz then comes in. And so that's two players. And on top of that, that's Vieira came in. From the moment he came into the squad, there are 3 players been added to the squad at expense by this manager. And so it's a problem for him. Now, I hope he wants to compete. Nelson's tried to compete. He struggled for time as well. Eddie's tried to compete. He struggled for time, though he's been given many chances. And he's in that group. Is he going to fight through and others going to go before him? Is he going to get a chance? So he has to train his backside off. And every time he's on the pitch, he has to show people the fans are behind him. That is 100%. 100%. For me, I'm a little bit worried at it because I can't picture him in the team. I just can't, and we could argue about where his best position is, but in this game I was thinking, you know what, every now and again it's not the worst thing in the world to take off the skipper and see if we can get Smith Rowe to spark off with his mate again on the right hand side. Just like do that for a change, just give him something else, unless it's been decided he's going to play from the left and invert a little bit and come on his right foot. But look, I'm open to him succeeding. Obviously, we know he has the talent. There have been debates around Eddie, by the way, who's now an England international, and debates around Nelson. But I think all of us feel that Smith Rowe's top level is good enough. We just haven't seen a healthy top level Smith Rowe for a long, long time. So let's just hope this is the start of a new page for him. That's where I am, Elliot.
Yeah. I mean, I think what's hard too about evaluating him, people like to say we are the best out of possession team in the world. I don't know if that's true. I haven't watched every team in the world, but I think we are really, really good out of possession.
Yeah.
I think Smith Rowe has work to do in that phase. No one wants to hear that, but I really believe it.
It's the truth.
The problem with that is it's very easy to see when someone adds good things on the ball. It's much harder to watch for whether they're not doing what they should do out of possession. Out of possession work is harder to follow. You're following the ball. I'll admit, I watch when we do rewatches. Clive can watch the game better than I can watch the game. And you can certainly watch the game better at the ground than you can on TV because you can't see the whole pitch. And so evaluating whether Smith Rowe is doing the right things out of possession is hard. Evaluating whether he's got tempo and directness and verticality when he's on the ball, that's easy. But I can promise you this, if he wants to get more minutes, it's the former that's going to get him the more minutes in Mikel's eyes.
Agreed.
And so that's the part that I think we have to watch for. I'm going to go out on a limb and say something maybe a little wild in keeping with who I am. I think Jorginho should play more. I think he should play more if he can. I got to tell you, Clive, I think this guy is one of the best players I've ever seen in terms of passing from midfield. And he has been for a decade. He's outstanding. He can't run. He had one play in this game where he got bypassed completely and tried to grab the guy and couldn't even get the guy with his arms. So he needs a minder. He needs to be in a rocking chair a bit. But if we're going to be in games where we are up the pitch, we know he's great at intercepting and reading the game. He's going to jump things. He's going to get beat sometimes. That's a danger. But Clive, I love the way he breaks lines. I love the verticality in his passing and the disguise in his passing. I don't think we appreciate it enough. And I know it was a dead palace, so I'm probably going too big.
Yeah.
But I see such quality in his passing. And frankly, people talk about what we miss in Thomas Partey. Jorginho can't do it with his feet in terms of, bringing guys onto him and driving by them, but he can do it with his passing. I think there's something there that we could probably use more. Now, shoot me down and say it was just because it was a dead game when he came.
So there's a shout in in the non-league world that I spent a lot of time in. There's a shout called areas. Right, sometimes you hit areas when you click the ball forward, and he does that really well. He just knows when to use the first time pass and just go forward. And I think Tim nailed it actually started the year. He said, I really like Jorginho as a closer. So for me, he's almost replaced Rob Holding in the team, but he closes from centre mid, he gets on the ball and takes the nerves out and creates a passing structure and just calms everybody down. He had a period in the team when Odegaard was not in the team, and he was basically the coach on the pitch. And so I wonder how many I won for Scott, really. I wonder how much time that him and Odegaard have spent on the pitch together. And because I think they are the de facto coaches on the team, the technical leaders of the team. They run the show, right? So yeah, for me, he's a closer if everyone's fit. But we're going to need him because when we started the podcast pre-chat, talk about the NFL stuff last night, and watch that guys going to the fourth quarter, everyone gets tight. It all got tight and everything stopped and it all didn't work. When we go into the last quarter of this season, we're going to be begging for Jorginho to be on that pitch in certain periods because the games really matter. They get scary. And this team is still the third youngest team in the league who haven't been here before in a Champions League, hopefully semi-final, blah, blah, blah. How do you manage the last 50 minutes of a game? we're projecting there, Elliot. But how do you manage the last 6 minutes of the game? I tell you, I'll be reaching for him. Get him on the pitch because he's actually done it. He's won a Euros. He's done it. He understands what this really means, and that's why he's here for me to help this group get over the hump. So, yeah, I think, mate, when he came on, they brought on James Tompkins, and mate, I'm quicker than him, and so that ball over the top was really easy for him. So easy money, but he did it right. He played it forward, so fair play to him.
Yep. All right. Obviously, a couple other subs on there. One of them is Gabriel Martinelli. I mean, I said it earlier in the pod, but I'll say it again. I don't think it would have done anyone any good to have Trossard start in place of Martinelli, score our only open play goal of the game, and then have everyone saying, well, that's what Martinelli doesn't do, is convert in the big moment. So thankfully, that's not what happened. Martinelli came on and scored 2 goals with Thierry Henry finishes. It's interesting because I don't think his sub appearance was off to the best start. He did some of the things that had people moaning again, right? Taking it to the byline, just carrying it out for touch and not making the decisive pass. But in the end, Eddie, let's give him credit. If I've criticized him for anything, it's that I don't think his final third passing is up to snuff. Carries the ball into a good space and then slips the ball in for Martinelli, who finishes smartly again for the second one. What do you think about Gabriel Martinelli there? Actually getting to run into the box to be a finisher, something I'm sure he has been desperate to be able to do. And he does it there twice.
Yeah, he was really, really good on those goals. I mean, when a goal's going to happen, it's down to everything. His last touch for the pass was, I call it a pass, that's what it was really, wasn't it? He passed it into the net. Was all excellent. Everything was so balanced and so good. If I have one thing I'd like to see him do more of, I'd like to see him travel a bit more across the line and just not be so static to the sideline. Excuse me. Because he's a problem when he's running across, when he's running inside, when he's running through. Just vary your start position. To be honest, this came into my mind a lot more after the Reece Nelson run in the first few minutes against Liverpool in the Cup. I thought, why can't he do that? Why can't he do that? Because I trust him to score. Make that run a lot more. Force people to clip it into you, out to in, across the line. Just make that run and But if that game state is there for him, I'm sure he would. He did it at Villa away, didn't he? And maybe was not in the best of shape and the best of form Villa away to really make that work. So yeah, vary your runs, keep being aggressive. Arteta said he doesn't suffer with a lack of confidence. Well, when he ran through, mate, it's the most obvious thing in the world he was going to score. And it was never in doubt to me. And that's at the end where I sit. So he's obviously got no problems at all with his confidence. But I did hear saying the IR, and I thought this was really, really good. Whatever we think we're going to do this year, and none of us really know, we're all living in hope, that boy needs to be on it. He needs to score. And so we got to protect him in our thoughts and and lift him up because he can score, and we need his ability to score. Otherwise, we're not going anywhere this season.
Yeah, I can't help but watch him score those 2 goals and think, Mikel, you're so smart. You're so good at this. Is there a way to get him closer to goal? Is there a way to get him into the third channel, or at least the second channel, not the first channel?
People. Sorry, let me hold you on this one. People it's not about where you start; it's where you finish. So he can start on the outside, but travel. You don't want to stand inside because people just stand on your toes and bounce you around. It's your movement to arrive into those areas, and he's got to do that more. And positionally, let's forget that. It's your movement and the passes are on for you and how you connect within the game model on that particular day. And the ball moving around that pitch is the model, and how you interact with the movement and how you make people not miss you out by your aggressive cuts that you make. That'd be my message. And once he's in front of goal, we all our heart rates fall down, didn't they? That means he knows what he's doing, right? So
yeah. I mean, I I can think of things that frustrate me about Martinelli, but how he finishes in front of goal is not among them. So it was good to see that. I think there was so much good in this game that it's still obviously a little strange that I think many people, and I'm not saying just miserable gets or things like that. There are a lot of people that seem to not have been convinced by what they saw. And I understand it, but
Yeah.
Clive, I think there's only going to be one moment when we get convinced, and it's on the horizon, because Liverpool coming to the Emirates feels like the one we don't have a choice about. I think we've been their equal at Anfield, and they're better at the Emirates this season, but we have, a draw and a loss to show for it. And I think we've put ourselves in a position through some silly points dropped to need to win that game. Interestingly, Liverpool go Wednesday, Sunday until then. And the Wednesday before they play us, they have Chelsea. They have Chelsea at Anfield, but it's still Chelsea. And whatever you think of Chelsea, the funny thing is, I don't know that Chelsea are very good, but they've been tough for the big teams this season. They have not been easy for the big teams. And so it will be interesting to see how Liverpool navigate that. I'm sure Klopp will be making sure everyone in the media is aware of their fixture congestion, as he likes to do. Of course, we have Forest before them, and as I mentioned, we have to do the job there. But Clive, just very quickly, I want to get out of here, but that game at the Emirates against Liverpool, I haven't seen anything in the times we played them that suggests we can't beat them. I really feel we are positioned where we should be able to beat them. How do you look at that upcoming fixture? Are you prepared to say that's the point where we simply reestablish ourselves in the title race or fall out of it? Are you prepared to circle that on the calendar as the big must win to really convince everybody we are right in it?
I think your point around Forest is valid. We don't do well there in recent times, and so we need to deal with them. And I watched them on the weekend, so we should be able to deal with them. Liverpool, hey, look, if you beat Forest and we drew against Liverpool, I wouldn't cry. I think it's just important to be in the room. And Liverpool have a lot of games, and their second part of the season, they can't just throw the Europa League games like they do in the first part of the season when it's really, really easy. And so they have a lot of games coming up. And things change very, very quickly. As we saw at the weekend with Declan Rice walking off the pitch, you don't know what's going to happen. And so we just got to stay close, and then make sure we don't lose those head-to-heads. That's really important. If we win the next two games, Elliot, the belief will be back, and we can go from there. And the next set of games look achievable. But if we drop silly points, I think people lose a little bit of belief in this group and a little bit of hope. And to win, not just compete, to win. But the most important thing, I don't want to sound negative here, but we need to stay right up in that top three. We're a top three team, and it's going to be the small details and the small margins, really. Let's make sure we're in that top three, no matter what happens, because the financials are telling us we need to be there. So let's be pragmatic about that. And, this team, you know what? It looks like a Champions League team to me as well. It's set up that way, So, hey, look, just focus on the next couple, mate. Forest, you made me think about Forest more than Liverpool. Forest is the one. Get those points. And then Liverpool rocks around. And we know whatever happens, we can close things, but we now start to maybe separate away from teams and get into that top three group. And then it becomes a three-way battle for it towards the end of the season. And that's what I want to see happen.
Yeah. And it's just the weirdest season right now because we have that game on the horizon, but we don't play again until Tuesday, January 30. So What is that? 9 days off, 8 days from now. I mean, obviously then that means the Liverpool game comes a little sooner. We wind up going Tuesday, Sunday. But as I mentioned, they go Wednesday, Sunday. So advantage us. There'll be a lot of hand-wringing about, will Salah be fit? Will Trent Alexander-Arnold be fit? I kind of think we're at the point where we just have to grow up and say, oh, guess what? We might have to beat Liverpool with all their players at the Emirates. That's okay.
Yeah,
we should. Would I like to play them with all backups? I mean, yeah, of course. But let's try to go beat them with whoever they bring to the Emirates. We're certainly good enough to do it. And just in the way we're talking about this, I think it gives you a very clear line of sight into what a trap game is. And hopefully Arsenal will be focused on not falling into that one.
Exactly.
We'll leave it there. The Director of Football series will continue over on Patreon. We'd love to have you over there for it. We have some new concepts going on over there, some big announcements to make, some live shows on the horizon. There's so much fun new stuff that we're going to be doing. And so for anybody that wants to come over there and check it out, we'd love to have you. But also, we're going to be doing more over here as well, where you can just get it any old time you want it. The important thing is that we're all in it together, and hopefully can really reconnect to a special second half of the season here. So 5-0 Arsenal, just as joyful as you'd expect it to be. I hope you're doing well. And if you are a Buffalo Bills fan, I imagine you're probably not doing well, but to the rest of you, I hope you're doing well. I did watch that. I know Clive stayed up late to watch that last night. Yeah, Clive, you witnessed a little bit of history repeating. Buffalo Bills have a bad history with field goal kickers missing wide right in critical situations. So
yeah, I say that message. I thought I didn't realize the history. I couldn't believe it. But hey, there you go.
It's a little bit history of the Tottenham with them, I'm afraid. So yeah, it is what it is. All right, let's leave it there. Clive's on Twitter. Clive PFC. Thanks, man.
Thank you very much.
My name's Elliot Smith, Blackman Twitter, Gunner. We love you very, very much. And we'll talk to you after Arsenal 10. For Arsenal,